Welcome to another episode of Peers Over Beers, your favorite digital and social evangelist podcast with your industry veteran hosts, Chris Detzel. This podcast starts now.
Welcome to another Peers Over Beers. My name is Chris Detzel, and we have a super duper guest today. He's a book writer now. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I is the term author now? That was
author.
So yeah, I mean,
I've had too much to drink already.
Well, it's hard to believe it. Actually, it's one of those things now. You know, I guess the A in my biography can start with, "Hi, I'm Adrian Speyer and author."
Author, I love
author,
it, man.
Speaker, and community builder.
So you have a book. What is that? What's the book called?
It's called The Accidental Community Manager: A Guide to Building a Successful B2B Community. And it only took 4 years to write, so I'm so happy it's finally done.
You know, I've known you for a long time, Adrian, and we've I say a long time, at least 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, we've talked on the phone several times in the past. Now it's been a while since you and I have had a conversation, but I think you told me about the book several years ago, a few years ago, or said you were working on one. And, you know, when people say that, you're just like, yeah, maybe, whatever, you know, like, will that ever come out? But you really actually wrote a book about community management, B2B stuff. And, you know, tell me more about that. Like what led you to write this book, and what it's about, and what are you trying to accomplish? Yeah. Great.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's always funny. I was telling as many people as I could I was writing a book, also to keep me motivated. And you know, it's kind of like, I don't know about you, but I've had some, I've gained weight, I've lost weight, I've gained weight, I've lost weight. Yeah. But what I found is, like, if you're telling people that you're working on something, and then everyone's like, "Hey, so how's that thing going that you're working on?" So people would occasionally be like, "Hey, so how's that book coming along?" Right? Yeah. So really what ended up happening is I think it was, you know, about 4 years ago, 2018, I want to say. And I just had this idea about putting together all the information I had that I had gained over time. And I knew that one of those things is that if you put it in the book, it's kind of there for posterity, in the sense that, you know, you over time you just forget things. And as I was having great conversations with you and others, I would be like, "Oh, let me, you know, that's something interesting. Maybe I should cover that." So I sat down and I wrote out this whole table of contents. And I was like, you know what, this book will cover everything soup to nuts. You know, I was also, you know, doing some internal training with the folks, because I work at the time I was working at Vanilla, which is now Higher Logic. And, you know, I would do internal training on that team, and I would write things down. And then I also realized too, you know, even talking to you and other folks, they didn't realize my experience in community building. Like, they all thought, "Oh, I'm a talking head," and I've talked to so many.
You're a stamp collector, so you have a community around stamps.
I've had it around stamps and hockey,
Canadian stamps. So.
Yeah, I've had communities and all kinds of stuff, and you know, and I was always talking to folks, and everyone seemed to have the same story, which was, I was doing X or Y, and then one day someone said to me, "Hey, you seem like people like you, and you're friendly, and we need someone to do this. How about you go run our community?" And, you know, that term, the Accidental Community Manager, kind of stuck in my head early on. I actually bought the domain name, theaccidentalcommunitymanager.com, several years ago, because I was like, this is going to be the name of the book. And that was the hardest thing, was because I knew the title was the linchpin of the whole project. That was dying inside, because I wanted people to know the title of the book, but I was like, I don't want anyone to steal it. I got to wait till I get this book out, because, you know, I mean, how many Art of Community books are there? I think there's like 3 now. So, you know, I just wanted to make sure that the Accidental Community Manager, I had kind of a bit on it. And so the broad strokes of the book were going back in time to my first job in a B2B community, because I had done communities many times, hobby stuff like that. But at the time, and you know, the mid 2000s, late 90s, there wasn't really a lot of how to build community or all that stuff. I mean, I think, like,
Yeah.
I want to like briefly remember there was some stuff like Jive had been putting out some stuff, and there was certainly Lithium was out there at the time, but there wasn't really a lot of content out there. And I was like, what would be that book that if a time traveler went back in time and left it on my desk, what would be that book that I want? And the other thing I was like, and Chris, you and I talked about this just before we went on, which was I'm a big believer in niches in the sense that
you are.
You need to find like, okay, why am I writing another book? I mean, Carrie's got a great book, Jono's got a great book, Rich has written, great books. Charles Vogel, there's tons of community books out there. So what was I going to add that
is there really tons? I mean, that's just a few
dozens.
People. Okay,
yeah.
That's not that many.
I mean, at least a dozen. I mean, what was I going to say different, or what was I going to bring to the party? And so, early on, I said, you know what, I'm going to write a very truthful first person, and of as vulnerable as I could be about the mistakes I've made, the things I've seen, a first person account of advice, not too heavy based, I didn't want it to be a boring academic book. Not that academic books are boring, but if you're going to sit down and you're going to learn about it, I want something fun that I could talk about, the time I was in the restaurant biz and how we, like I tell this story in the book, we were soft launch, right? And we were getting ready to open the restaurant, and the lights are on, the people are outside ready to come in, and we realized that the pans don't work because the oven sensor didn't work for the pans. So our manager had to run out and buy all new pans. Well, we had this rush of people that just wanted to come in and do it. And so my point on that was about the soft launch, with your community and why that's so important. And, just correlated it through that kind of aspect of why it's so important to me and how I saw it firsthand. So I kind of weave in all these different stories. I talk about, being a badminton player in high school, went all the way to provincials, and what it was like to step in and replace a star player. Just like if you had to, step in and replace a star community person, like if they leave, move on, and like, how do you handle that? So there's a lot of little stories out, throughout the book. So I just tried to make it something that you could sit down, hopefully, give people a laugh, maybe they had the tear, and, hopefully highlighting a lot. That was the funny thing when my wife first got the copy of the book. She's like, it has to pass the highlight test. I'm like, what does that mean? She's like, well, I know, like when I get a textbook, and if you look in the hardcover, which I honestly love, I know it's a little bit pricier, but it's such a beautiful way that was done. It's like a textbook. So she's like, I got to get my highlighter out and make sure, when you highlight it, it looks good. And she's like, okay, it passes. So the moment that she was happy with it, I clicked the publish button right after CMX. Unfortunately, I didn't have copies with me. And I know a lot of people were like, hey, I wish you were, could sign, but hey, I promise you, if you buy a book and I'm at any conference that with you folks, I'm happy to sign it. And I'll be in Vegas in a couple of weeks for the October 17th and 19th, because I don't know when this will be broadcast, but I'll be in Vegas the 17th and the 19th for the TSIA, which is a Technology Support Industry Alliance event. And I'll be there if anyone's attending. Happy to sign your book, and hopefully have some giveaways as well of the book if you're attending that show as well.
Well, I'll be in Vegas probably not till November at AWS. I don't know if you'll be there, but
just the 17th and the 19th, limited time, like Pete Rose, I got my little spot and I'll be signing stuff. And I mean, I'm hoping not like Pete Rose, like, being like 80 years old at the mall, signing baseball. So sorry, I ruined baseball, but
yeah. Oh my God. Well, that's quite the story, man. What is it? What is it that at the end of the day that you're hoping that or people that read it get out of it? Just kind of experience from you, or what's the? Yeah, like any specific goals, thoughts?
Yeah, I have a lot of goals. Funny enough, so my ultimate dream in life was to get a book done. So I really wanted. So I put the way I approach this book is if I never am able to write another book ever again. I got all my wisdom, all my thoughts, all my ideas. I mean, now I have a lot of other stuff like, I should have included that. Like I don't talk that much about stamps in this book, believe it or not.
What?
Yeah, I know. Crazy, right?
Probably good.
But I think I
know you love stamps. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I think the thing is, it's kind of how I started out the book. I want people to know that nobody knows anything. we're all just kind of making it up, trying our best to get through the day. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of times people are like, oh, like, you know so much, or so-and-so knows so much about community and I don't know anything. And you know what? We're all just suffering from imposter syndrome and trying to just do our best. And I just wanted to create a book that someone had that kind of just, oh, you know what? I'm running into this problem. Let me see what, Adrian has some advice on it. I never really expect, I mean, I trust me, I love the fact people buying the book and they're going to read it cover to cover.
Yeah.
What I really wanted it to be is that kind of reference book that, if someone was like, oh my God, like, I'm taking over a community, what do I do? Or my community's dead, or I need to hire a moderator, or I need to ask my boss for more money so I can get XYZ, or how do I do a content program, or what do
So you address all that in the book.
There is, I mean, funny enough, I mean, I probably should have had a better editor in terms of cutting stuff out, but it's 340-ish pages, I think.
Okay.
In the paperback, I cover everything from SEO to moderation teams to choosing KPIs to selecting a forum software to should you even have a forum, building out a program.
Hopefully you say higher logic or
no, well, you know what,
vanilla.
I don't make any recommendations. The only thing that I say is, here are the things that you need to ask and you need to make sure that you check. The point is, yes, I do work at a forum vendor and I have been since 2013. But with that comes kind of the see, this is the kind of funny, I always say this is the other reason that I did the book. The problem is, a lot of people will look at me and go, oh, you work at a vendor, I don't want you. And I appreciate you letting me be on this podcast. It's like, oh, I don't want him on this because he's going to try and sell me a platform or try to.
I already know you're not going to do that.
No, but what I'm saying is, a lot of people, like, I
don't care.
No, but I know. But some people will do like, oh, you're at a vendor, so you need to pay a sponsorship fee and this, that, and the other. What I wanted to do, this to me is a book of service. So what I wanted people to know is, if you're going to buy a software, here are the questions you need to ask so you don't have a situation. Because I can tell you, having been doing this a very long time, it happens that someone will choose a platform and not think about data export or data ownership, or they may think about it, but then they don't think about, oh, what format am I going to get the stuff out of the community? So like, they may be thinking, oh yeah, you know what, maybe I'll migrate and they'll give me a data dump of my stuff. But then they find out that the data dump isn't a PDF, or something like that, which they can't use. And so I kind of
can't use a PDF.
Yeah, well, I mean, try importing a community with PDF. I mean, there's a whole bunch of platforms that if you put your stuff on there, it's never coming off. And like, I have dealt with people that have kind of had to restart their community for the simple fact that the data was kind of just locked in, like a Hotel California scenario. And I kind of want to make sure, and I don't want that to happen. I don't.
That's an interesting tip. I never thought about it. I guess, I've always selected the right vendor, but getting your data out is got to be the single most important thing that a community leader should think. I say single most, but that's got to be an important thing to think about for the future. You don't know that you're going to stick with a vendor forever. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And then the other thing too is, I want to give that platform perspective as well. We at platforms, and I'm speaking for all the platforms, Koros and Inside It and everyone, no one here wants you to choose the wrong platform.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you choose the wrong platform for your objective, what's going to end up happening is the platform vendor will probably get the blame of it. Oh, your platform sucks because it didn't allow me to achieve my goals. But it's like, well, maybe it wasn't the right platform to start with. And I also address that too, because I've had people that will, early on, they would choose vanilla to be like a blog platform. Like, if you want to do blogging, like, get WordPress. Don't try to turn a forum into,
or Medium or something.
Yeah, like, it's just a weird. It's a weird thing, and it's just the same. Like, Higher Logic does the association stuff well, and I don't know. Like, if you go and take whatever platform it is and try to do something else with it, and you kind of go, oh, this is a really good platform for associations. Well, like, well, that's kind of a no-brainer. Like, you chose the wrong platform.
I use Higher Logic, and I've always been happy with what they do, and been using them for a long time, right? There's specific reasons that I stick with them.
Yeah, we've
relationship
talked,
so
we've talked about that, but that's what's important, right? Like, we don't, like, wherever you end up going next, like, you want to make sure that you're making the right choice. And certainly I'm the head of evangelism, so of course I think the platform's great. I love it, and I think it does a great job. But at the same time, I don't want people to take the wrong platform and then be like, oh, it's like it's your fault. And it's like, well, sometimes, and let's all be honest, sometimes platforms don't do all the things that you want, and there's always going to be gaps. But at the same time, let's go eyes open, and hopefully in the sales process, things go well enough that they challenge you along the way to make sure that you're in the right spot, so that you don't end up with a surprise. And
I think platforms, is an important piece of, community, the community decision, right? Like, if you want an online platform, you gotta buy one, and look at the big 3 or 4. It's my recommendation around that.
Yeah. Well, it's also important too. Like I also like to point out, it's not just about the platform. Like that's the other thing too. Like people get, oh, you're a forum guy, and I get it. It's one channel in a multiverse of different opportunities to engage with the community. And I think forums are great from the fact of all the benefits that I see from it. I was talking to a sales guy the other day, and he's like, oh, this customer is on Slack, and it's like, well, how do I convince them to migrate off Slack to go into a forum? I'm like, no, that's not the conversation you should be having. Slack has a very special characteristic about real time and being ephemeral, really great, like in that immediacy, just like Discord and some other platforms are.
That's right.
But a forum has a whole different angle that Slack will just never be able to do, which is, and you know this, Chris, because you've worked at companies with people in different time zones. It's like a conversation starts at 3 p.m. your time, and someone in Australia wants to comment. Well, if it's in Slack, by the time they get around, it might be so far away they missed out, and they don't know half the conversation that's happening. But a forum, at least it's linear. They can see it. Oh, okay. Chris said this, and Mike said that, and Joan says this, and I can quote them and have that conversation. There's a permanence to it as well. From an SEO perspective, you're not getting any SEO benefits from a Slack community. It's kind of hidden, and so I don't see it as an either.
So people are asking the same questions over and over. It's not searchable or easily searchable.
But it's an and, right? Like that's what I would say. Like use both. Like there's
Slack is good. I love Slack, but I would never use it for an online community. Honestly,
you'd be amazed. Ever. Like I don't want to call them out, but there was a company.
Yeah, there is.
They had a fantastic community, and they shut. So let me use the proper terminology. They had a forum that was fantastic, and it had a lot of great content. And they decided to go to Slack, and they closed it down, and that information got lost to the ether.
Yeah.
And they went to Slack, and about like a year later, they realized they made a mistake. And part of the mistake was they lost all the people and the conversations and all the great stuff that was there. Yeah. And they went back to having a forum, and it never recovered. Like they just weren't able, because people didn't trust them, and it was kind of really tough.
Going back and forth.
Yeah, it was kind of sad, to be honest, because it was a site I used to visit quite a bit to get information. I mean, I don't know about you. Like we use Slack in my company, and how many times have you said, you know what, I know this conversation happened, but I can't find it?
Yeah, all the time. I'm like, I was doing that this morning, and I was like, just ask it again.
Yeah, and then and then you try to, oh, maybe I'll use a filter with files and add who I believe was mentioned in it, and you still don't find it. And I just don't find forums have as much trouble in finding the content. I've never had as much trouble.
Especially open ones, when you can find it on Google, you just do a search and it's there.
Yeah.
So we talked about platforms. You talk about content moderation and things like that. Any other things that you want to kind of bring up?
Yeah, well, I talk about health and taking care of oneself. I think that's an important aspect. And I talked about DEIB, which I thought is really important, because
what's DEIB?
Diversity and inclusion. It's really important because, or DEI or however, it's really important that conversation happened. And I felt, it was kind of important to, a book about community to at least have a chapter discussing it. And
so diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Correct.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
Sorry, I had a brain. It's Friday afternoon, folks. So
I just Googled it.
But I had that chapter on it, and I really relied on a whole bunch of friends within the community space to kind of, check it and make sure that I covered all the things that needed to be there and provide some resources through. So, I mean, that's the main thing. And, now the next step is just waiting for people to read the book and hopefully start getting some reviews. I'm both excited and terrified by reviews. It takes a long time to put this together. Self-published, all out of pocket to put it together. Part of that was no publisher would have waited 4 years for this book.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's funny is, well, not funny, but as I say in the book, COVID had obviously a lot of impact on a lot of people's lives. The only thing that I had that was positive out of COVID was this book. The reason is I had a very lengthy commute to work. Most people know this. My boss used to always roll her eyes. My old boss used to roll her eyes when I would talk about it. But yeah, it was a fact of 2.5 hours door to door.
Just one way?
Each way every day. So that was 5 hours. So 5 hours of my day was tied up in commute. And when Vanilla decided to go remote, those 2.5 hours I then committed to writing the book before work and after work. So I was able to really start to churn. And at the start of this year, I want to say it was January, or maybe the end of last year, I had finished the first draft and I started to kind of go through, editing and are there things that are missing and, refinements and things of this nature. And it was really tough because honestly, writing the book was really easy. All the real hard work came after the book was finished. Because here you are, you have this Word document, you've written all this stuff. It's I think it was like 77,000 words, but how do you get it from a Word document into a book? I don't know about book publishing. I never out.
I wouldn't either.
And I'd love to give a shout out to the folks at Reedsy, reedsy.com. If ever you're looking to publish your own book, it's a marketplace. And I was able to basically find an editor, find all these fine folks to kind of help me format the book into the book that you see today. I found it
in the community.
Yeah, I mean, in some senses, it was kind of funny too, because the first round to get an editor, you're allowed up to 10, 10 what do you call it, people that you can ask for a quote. So I sent out this quote to 10 folks, and each one by one rejected the quote. Rejected in the sense that they're like, I don't know anything about community. This is not saying I'm interested in. I don't think I can help you. And then there was one guy, his name was Gregory Newton Brown. Fantastic guy. I can't say enough good things about him. He's a freelancer who works at HarperCollins and Random House. So he said, I'm going to work with you on this book and I'm going to make it happen. It was a real partnership. We had some Zoom calls. He really got it. And what was great is I had shared this book with some folks in the community space that read it before, and they kind of got, were kind of giving me tips I'll give credit, like Carrie Melissa Jones and Nicole Devilites.
Awesome.
Who read through and were like, oh, this isn't clear, or maybe you want to expand on this, or maybe I would rearrange the chapters. Like Nicole pointed out to me, like I didn't have anything about private communities, right? Because a lot of people about private communities, and she's like, you've talked about public communities, but you haven't talked about private communities. I'm like, you're right. I'll add a chapter on that. So, a lot of the blind spots. But what was great about Greg is he came at it from something that I couldn't have, which was someone who wants to build a community with fresh eyes. And he would point out stuff like, oh, this is an acronym, or this isn't clear, or this doesn't make sense to me. Can you expand on it? Because you get so inside baseball that any expert in community would kind of gloss over and not notice it. So Greg was doing a really great job, and then he was able to format it into the format needed. So he got the Word document all the way to with the margins and all that jazz. He's like, who are you publishing with? And I'll set it all up. And then I found this wonderful fellow in Ireland / Spain. I'm not really sure where he lives. I know he's Irish, but it's Spain. And he designed the cover of the book, and we went back and forth. But I mean, he just did a fantastic job. And it all just kind of came together really quickly, to be honest, after that. And it was kind of one of these moments where each step of the way, I kind of get a bit of anxiety, because it's like, okay, well, what do I do next? Right?
Yeah.
Like what happens
That's
next?
great, though.
And so it moved really quickly, because I think were you in Memphis at Clicks?
No, I didn't get to go to that.
Okay, so when was that? It was April or February, April,
something like that.
Yeah. So that was, I added one chapter at that time. So just to give an idea of timeline, and then over the summer was when I was doing like the final editing with Greg and all that jazz. I had it ready at Amazon for a bit, but here's the thing. I didn't want to sell anything without physically seeing the quality of the book, right? So I want to get a copy. I got it in my hands. I was like, okay, it's good. People are going to put hard-earned money. I want to make sure that it looks of quality. And the second I was happy with it, I clicked the publish button. That's great. That's kind of what I was waiting for. And I literally pressed the button after I got off the plane from CMX, because here's the thing. I'm up in Canada. I live in Montreal, and the thing that's crazy is I ordered the books at the end of August, and they only got to my house like when I got back.
So, are you shipping these books to people when they order it? Is that how you?
No, it can be ordered from Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. It's available on the Kindle and on Kobo, on the Apple bookstore. No, the only thing that, man, I have learned so much about the book business. So I have to apologize to all Canadians, because I'm Canadian myself, as I mentioned, and I don't really control the pricing, which is really strange. So I set a price, right? Like there's a UPC code on the back, but Amazon can decide. And Jono is really funny. You'll see sometimes he'll share like, hey, my book's on sale on Kindle, because they just decide. Like you don't have control over it. Like right now, I think the hardback
$28 or something.
Well, here I'll give an example. The US price is pretty much what I set it at, but in Canada, for example, it's $52 for the hardcover, but it's really $37 if you buy it from Amazon. But I had set it lower, but they kind of control it based on exchange rate and all that jazz, even though I want it to be lower. But I just got an email from Chapters, who's promised me. So Chapters is our Barnes and Nobles. I mean, they're not affiliated, but it's kind of like the alternative to Amazon in Canada. So Chapters, they have to manually add my book. I know we live like in 2022, but there's someone that has to actually like manually type it in. They told me that the book should be there in about 2 weeks. So
2 weeks.
They have to manually type in information. But I mean, the ebook version is, and that's the other thing too that I learned. You don't need an Apple or an Amazon device to use the Kindle. If you have a smart device of any kind or tablet, you download the Kindle app and you can download the electronic version of the book. Personally, I mean, I'm not saying that because I want people to spend the money, but the hardback to me is the nicest version of it, because it feels it's got that heft to it. It feels like a textbook. The way it's kind of also funny too. I'll be honest.
And Adrian, you don't have to apologize. You want people to buy the book, so
but I'm Canadian, right?
It's fun.
I'm Canadian, so we naturally apologize. But what I find funny is, to me, what makes me laugh is it looks like a textbook and there's swear words in it. So I should want, this isn't a book for kids. There are some curse words, because life is full of them sometimes, and
it is.
Yeah, I wanted to have some fun. Like I wanted to give people a chuckle. So, I think like one of the chapters is the complete shit show. Like I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on your.
Yeah,
podcast.
you are.
Okay, well that's good. So yeah, I mean.
I say stuff like that all the time. So
so I mean, I wanted like, what happens if you have a complete shit show that you have to deal with, or, I also want to talk about like, what if you have a support community or a product community, and some of the advice in that, because, and I think you've worked in support communities a while, but I wanted to remind, especially someone new to the community business, you are not a support agent. It can be very easy to fall into that if you're brand new to the community. And someone says, okay, we're doing a support community and you're going to answer these support questions. Well, wait a second. I'm a community manager. My job isn't support. I'm happy to build the community and make connections and kind of be the conduit. But my job is not support. I'm not a support agent.
Yeah.
And I really, that's the kind of stuff that's in the book. I want to give, I tell early on, one of the biggest regrets I had early on in my career was I didn't know better, but B, I didn't have the confidence. Like I knew things were being done wrong in the community, but I was kind of like, well, that's the boss and that's what they want to have done. I was measuring stuff I shouldn't have been measuring. And, they had me doing all kinds of creating fake profiles and having conversations with myself. And like, I didn't know any better. I was early 20s, just out of school, kind of thing. And it's like, okay, well, you want fake profiles? Sure. I'll create fake profiles. Sure. And I'll have that conversation. And like, I mean, hey, these are marketing executives. They know better than me. So I'll do as told. And, at the same time, that's on me, right? Like I take full responsibility in the book. Like as the head of the community at the time, it was on me to say, wait, this isn't the way that we should do it. But I kind of took a passive seat and kind of followed along. But I want to tell people, hey, don't do this, because I there's a lot of people that say, oh, you should just make some fake. Here's the thing: if you have to create fake conversations, maybe the concept for your community is not a good idea, because maybe people don't want to talk about it.
That's right.
If you can't find at least someone. And here's the thing, like and that's the other thing I want to underscore. This is a book about B2B communities. Like, I know there's going to be people that are going to come at me like, well, it's not true for nonprofit, or it's different, and this, that, the other.
I think creating fake profiles is probably pretty true amongst most communities, right?
But what I mean is this: if you're a B2B community, you have a community around you, right? The community exists. There's people that are, obviously there's an audience, and then there's a community, right? There's folks that are going out there, whatever product that you're working on selling, they're talking to one another, be it in user groups or LinkedIn or Reddit or wherever that's happening. So
they're looking for people to talk to about the product because of either they need help, they need something to get done, right?
Yeah, like I understand a consumer product that's brand new that no one's ever heard of. I understand. But I mean, if you're Adobe or you're, name whatever brand you want, they've got a community where conversations are going to happen, where that conversation could occur. And I'm saying, hey, well, you should be able to find folks to seed your content or possibly best folks to come in and have that conversation, right? Like it's kind of a no-brainer.
Wow. I can't believe you wrote a book. That's pretty awesome.
I can't believe it either. I mean, to me, it's
I think it's great, man. Whenever you posted that like a couple of weeks ago or something, and I was like, Adrian wrote a book. Wow. That's pretty awesome. I know you mentioned where we can find it, but what's the name of the book? Just to kind of end it here, but name of the book and where you can get it and all that kind of stuff.
I'll put it up here, for those that visually can see it. So it's called The Accidental Community Manager, a guide to building a successful B2B community. It's available at all fine bookstores. And actually, the easiest way is just go to my website, adrianspeyer.com. And there's a link with a little icon for a book. I also have a newsletter if people are interested that, around the book when things are happening, because, I hope to be out there and talking about the book and would love to hear from folks. And if you're listening to this and you've read the book and you think it's worthy of a review, I'd really appreciate it. One, because, like I said, these are the things that you learn about the book industry, but the reviews are so important for discovery. And, I'm very I just also want to say, I'm very thankful for you, Chris, and just the larger community of community professionals that have supported this book, bought it, taken selfies, shared it all over social that they had bought copies of the book. But I also want to get to those folks that are brand new that don't know us, like, as you know, right? How many times have you heard this where someone brand new starts in community and they're like, oh, I didn't realize it was a thing. I didn't realize there was an industry. I didn't realize there was a show. I didn't realize that. Right. So for me, the reviews will help those folks that are maybe, brand new to community and they're searching and they find a book. Like, I don't buy stuff on Amazon without a review. So it's really important to me that, hopefully it's worthy of 5 stars and people think it's a great book and want to leave that. But, I'm a big boy and I know that doesn't always happen. But
feedback is a gift, right? Yeah. So we all need that, and certainly for the book and for your next one, to do or not.
Well, I have some plans. Okay.
Hopefully it doesn't take 4 years, but
Well, you know what? I have a recipe now, so I think. Well, here's where I'm debating. I have potentially another book around community stuff, or a fiction book about a murder and some money hidden in walls, and it's a very intriguing story that has also been on that's also been around for 4 years as well. So
really?
now that I've picked one out, it's kind of like, oh, now I have time to work on the other. But yeah, we'll try something. Well, I was talking to someone the other day about this. I don't know if people know this, but Anthony Bourdain, besides writing books about cooking, also was a mystery thriller writer. He's written a couple of books that they're actually pretty good. And I was kind of skeptical at first. I'm like, well, what does a chef know about the mobs and all this stuff? But the books were really well written. I enjoyed them. They're kind of like trashy novels you read on the beach, but I mean, I enjoyed it. So I thought, hey, that'd be fun to do. But I mean, hey, once you kind of break the seal and figure out all the things you need to do, like I've got the recipe, so it's just
now you know how to do it. Yeah, I think that's remarkable. And unfortunately, we have to cut this where I have to go. But it's remarkable that one, you had this idea, you not just execute on the idea, you found the people to help you kind of do it, and it's self done, and that's a remarkable story, Adrian, and you should be proud of that. And I'll definitely make sure to buy the book probably right after the call I have here coming up, and I'll push that into the podcast link and also to the YouTube link. So, Adrian, thanks so much for coming on to the show, and congratulations on your book.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, everyone. And I look forward, at some point in person, meeting all the folks at Reddit and signing their copies, or tell me the bits that you love the most, or your own personal story about
Absolutely
being an accidental community manager. Love those.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in to another Peers Over Beers. I'm Chris Detzel, and
I'm Adrian Speyer.
thanks, Adrian.
Thank you.